All right, we're now recording. We now have people assembled. We now have the everything more or less set up as we hope. Hopefully, everyone can see. Slides are just in a way to keep me on track. They're not incredibly useful this week, although they might be a little bit. We've called this the genius of Abraham, but this parsha of Toldot, sadly, Abraham has already passed away. So we now have to deal with the fact that we are no longer able to be purely the genius of Abraham. So we're going to the genius of the patriarchs. I'm going to start there. And in this week's Parshat Toldot, it starts, of course, with Yitzchak and Rivka building their family. The first Aliyah deals with the pregnancy of Rivka. Thank you, Meyer, for getting the door. It deals with the pregnancy of Rivka, and this is really just brings us into a very unique window, and it's a window that is a window of two people who share very few words. Both Yitzchak and Rivka are people of few words, and we really have, of all the patriarchs, we have the least amount of information about Yitzchak. And so here I want to start with something sort of an interesting question. Credit is due where credit is due. I discovered a wonderful book by Rabbi Yoel Ben-Nun. Rabbi Yoel Ben-Nun is one of the great Torah scholars, especially Tanakh scholars of modern era. He is a rabbi who teaches at the Herzog Center, the Machon Herzog in Israel. He is also well known in Israel as a very innovative and interesting Bible scholar. And he asks a very simple question. And I'll throw this question out. You can answer it either the crowd online or the crowd here. Okay, we'll start with the easy question. What is Abraham's profession? What does Abraham do for a living? Shepherd. Excellent.
He raises cattle. He raises cattle.
Okay, cattle, sheep, cattle. So Annie said cattle. So good. He's shepherd. He's cattle. That's what he does. Well, wells may be something you need to water your sheep, right? And to boil your soup. And if you're going to make lamb stew, you might also want some water. So yes, he does dig wells, but that doesn't make him per se a hydrologist, right? So he is but by the end, we will have to account for the wells, very interestingly so. Okay, good. Yaakov, what's Yaakov's profession?
Yosef Ohalim.
No, that's his nature. But as far as we know, he doesn't have a stipend from the Kennedy Endowment for the Arts that is paying him to sit in the tents. So what later in life? What is his?
He's also a herder.
Good gezukt. He's a shepherd. Okay, now harder question. What is Yitzchak's profession? I know you're tempted to say, well, his father was a shepherd. His son was a shepherd. I'll go even further. When the brothers go in front of Pharaoh, what do they say?
Shepherds.
Right, we're shepherds. Right, that's the family business, right? So, and he's a shepherd. So Gabi wants to say both. He wants to have he wants to hedge his bets. Mea Sharim. Oh, very good. So Gavi says, doesn't it say about Isaac, Yitzchak, right, that he had Mea Sharim, that famous neighborhood in Jerusalem, really is named for what happens to Yitzchak. That actually it's an interesting phrase that comes up in the Torah, in Parshat Toldot, and we learn that Yitzchak has a very good crop that is known as it's referred to as Mea Sharim, as 100 gates. This is here we go. It is verse chapter 26, verse 12. I'll just read the Hebrew. Vayizra Yitzchak ba'eretz hahi. And Yitzchak planted in that land. V'yimtza b'shana hahi mea sharim. And he found that year 100 gates. Vayavarchehu Hashem, and God blessed him. So,
Was a farmer.
oh, okay, very good. And he says he's a farmer. I'm going to give credit to Gavi because Gavi, I think, got that first. But let's just because we're here with Mea Sharim, I just wanted to tell you what Rashi says. This is on page 130, chapter 26, verse 12. And Rashi tells us, "V'rabotenu amru," our father said, "Zu zeh lema'asrot haya." Right? Why does he say 100 gates? Because it wants to tell you that Yitzchak gave Maaser. Yitzchak is the first one to tithe, right? That's why it tells you 100 gates. This is, by the way, one of those footnotes to the class. I didn't expect Gavi to come up with 100 gates. So this is a little tangent that I'm entertaining all on my own. You'll forgive me for doing it, but I just couldn't resist. I love the idea that this is where the rabbis see that charity, tithing, actually starts. That's where Mea Sharim is. But really, the simple understanding of the verses is exactly that. Yitzchak left the family business and he became a farmer. Now, this is significant for a lot of reasons. Let's start to count some of those reasons. First of all is that why is Yitzchak a farmer and not a shepherd?
You don't have to move around.
Okay, very good. You don't have to move around. Well, what's wrong with moving around? Right? I hear van life is very popular these days. Right? All these people on Instagram are living their van life. How come Yitzchak didn't want to...
It's certainly harder.
Okay, it's harder. Well, harder. Well, maybe not, depending.
I mean, finding water.
Okay, maybe there's new challenges everywhere you go. That's true, right?
Well, the next pasuk already says that he has a lot of tzon mikneh bakar, so he's doing both now.
So let me just. So he's doing both.
Yeah, in verse 14, he had flocks and sheep.
Okay, very good. So he has both, but he's not the kind of shepherd that his father was. There's also something interesting about the family business that we have not related to. And it would appear that one of the things that the family does, and again, Rav Yoel Binun points this out, is that they seem to be traders. There's a lot of things that go on around the forefathers that demonstrate that they were involved in trade, right? If, for example, you look at the story of Joseph and his brothers. Joseph and his brothers are there in the middle of nowhere in Yechupitzville with their sheep. And all of a sudden, they find Orchat Yishmaelim, right? They find a group of Yishmaelim who are going to trade with. It seems pretty clear that they were stationed at certain crossroads because they were involved in trade. This is what Haran is. This is what Israel was the rest station between the great civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia. And so when you went from one to the other, where do you trade in between? You know, this is why Singapore is such a rich country, right? Because Singapore is sort of this exchange, right? It's an exchange center between different markets in the Far East. So that's what Israel was. When Avram, in last week's Parshat, right, it says that Arba Ma'ot shekel, 400 shekel, over la socher, gives to the socher. The socher is the merchant, right? So Rav Yoel is it makes a reasonable case that there are two professions that are the family of Abraham was involved in. One was shepherding, and the other one was trading, and they work well together because, you know, if you're going to take stuff from one to the other, you're going to bounce in between them. You can move your sheep with you. It is no fixed address, but this family makes its money through movement, trade, and shepherding. But Yitzchak does not, and he is the only one of them that plants crops. And that is going to be a significant a significant change. One of the reasons that Gavi, I thought you were going to give me this answer. Why is it that he doesn't leave the land of Israel? He was told by God, right? And what is the rabbinic explanation for why he was told by God not to leave?
He was set aside and made holy.
Very good. He was called an Ola Tmima, right? When Abraham is given the instruction to go up to Mount Moriah with Yitzchak, it says, V'ha'alehu sham la'olah. Raise him up there as an Olah. Now, I believe 2 weeks ago, Gavi was here arguing, saying that Abraham never was commanded to kill his son. He was just told to bring him up as an Olah. Anybody who understands it properly knows that he wasn't really commanded to kill him. We could have a debate about that. I see the virtue of such an argument. I see the virtue of the counter argument. But regardless of how we see the Akedah, we see that that Yitzchak has a certain kind of holiness to him that does not afford for him to leave the land of Israel. And, so we did the family profession. We saw it. Okay. All right. Now, here's where we get to something very interesting. Those in here, can you see this well enough? Okay. So, this is Rav Yoel's comparison of the narrative of Abraham against the narrative of Yitzchak, right? So first we have Vayihi Ra'av Ba'aretz. There was a famine in the land. What happens when Abraham encounters a famine in the land? What does he do?
Goes down to Egypt.
Goes down to Egypt, right? And we are told and there's only one chapter for Yitzchak, chapter 26. That's it. He gets one chapter. Abraham has many. Yaakov has many. Yitzchak has one. Vayihi Ra'av Ba'aretz. There was a famine in land. Milvad harav harishon asher ya b'mei Abraham. Right? There was a famine in land. There's a different famine from the famine in the days of Abraham, right? And Yitzchak goes to Elimelech in Gerar. Gerar is in southern Israel. If you drive between Nitivot and Beersheba, you can go to Gerar Park. It's a beautiful little park with these Middle Eastern pine trees. It's rolling sort of gullies. It's a nice place to have a picnic. It's in the Gaza envelope kind of area, and that's where Yitzchak lives. And here's where it says, Vayar elav Hashem, God appears to him and says, Al tered Mitzrayim, don't go down to Egypt. Now, if I'm going to compare that with Abraham, so Abraham went down to Egypt. Yitzchak stops at the border. The other thing, which is, what is the command that God gives Abraham in a signature way, does not give to anyone else, and he gives it to him twice? The name of a parsha, hint. Lech lecha. He says, Lech lecha, go take yourself. He says it to him twice. Once when he's in Haran to go to the land of Israel, the second time when he's in Beersheba to take Yitzchak to the Akedah. But the command to Yitzchak is exactly the opposite. Shachein ba'aretz, stay in this land, dwell in this land. Asher omar elecha, right? Live in Shchon. Thank you. Shchon ba'aretz asher omar elecha. Live in this land, right? So Yitzchak gets the exact opposite command of Abraham. So you'll see, right, that again, Abraham is go forth, Yitzchak is stay in the land, and with respect to, they get the same blessings, right? I will make you your heirs as numerous as the stars of heaven, and assign to your heirs all these lands. You can compare that to Abraham's being instructed that the land will belong to his offering, like the dust of the dust of the earth. And then again, in 26:18, Yitzchak says, God says to Yitzchak, and the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your descendants. This is a signature kind of thing of the Abraham family, is both of them get this idea that their children will be, the nations of the land will bless themselves by this family. And also we see that Avram also got in 22:17 through 18, we see that Abraham was told that his children would be as numerous as the stars of the heaven, and Yitzchak gets exactly the same bracha. So we see this very, very strong parallelism between the story of Abraham and the story of Yitzchak, except for this one very glaring detail, that Yitzchak is not going to be, is not allowed to leave the land of Israel. Annie, you have a question.
So this begs the question: why, if there is a satisfaction of the famine with the Plishtim in Gra, why is Abraham going down to Egypt then?
Because Egypt has this grand river, right?
I know if there is provisions in with the Plishtim in Gra, then they could have satisfied Abraham's hunger as well for when there was.
So Annie, you and a rabbi by the name of Moshe ben Nachman read the story the same way, because the Ramban is very cross with Abraham for having left the land of Israel to go to Egypt, and all sorts of trouble came to him on that account. So that fair enough. But Rav Yoel ben Nun's argument is that Yitzchak becomes the first, I'm afraid to use this term, but he becomes the first settler. He becomes the first person to settle in the land of Israel.
Why is that? It's very important.
It's a term that people use in a pejorative way. I'm not suggesting that it is, but I'm just simply saying that, he was the first chalutz, to use the old Zionist term.
That's great. That's what Israel is all about.
I'm not criticizing him at all, right? Meir is telling us that big smile on Meir Greenspann's face because he learned that Yitzchak was the first chalutz. He was the first settler of the land of Israel, and that's what Yitzchak is. He never leaves, and he plants crops. However, if you recall, when we started with the genius of Abraham, we discovered that what is one of the rules of the book of Bereshit? Farmers kill shepherds. So
Shepherds.
Right. So Avram remained if farmers kill shepherds, Yitzchak has become a farmer. He's become a farmer pretty much in God's direction. Has he betrayed the family? Right? Did he? I don't know. Is he the one guy in the long line of rabbis who became a professor of evolutionary biology? Like what? No, chemistry is relatively neutral. I need something pejorative. Gender studies or something, right? So here, he's this is Yitzchak's in a way stepping out from our theme, which will bring us to an interesting fact about Yitzchak, and Rav Yoel brings this out too. He says that Yitzchak does everything in the field, right? So Yatsa lasuach basadeh, he goes out to pray in the field, and it's in the field that he meets Rivka, right? And he plants in the field, and it's in the field that he battles with the Philistines. And Esav is an ish sadeh. Esav is a man of the field. Now this is where this all of a sudden gets very interesting, right? Because it is one of the hardest pieces of this parsha is trying to figure out, first of all, what does Yitzchak see in Esav? If Esav is as bad as the rabbis make him out to be, that he was involved in murder and he was a hooligan and he was deceitful and deceptive, what is it that Isaac finds so attractive about this person? Right? What's that?
I'm guessing he's product of Esau's product of Isaac.
So okay, Meir just said he didn't see. Okay, look, his eyes, right? It tells us that his eyes had become darkened, right? Right? This is 27:1. Vayihi ki zaken Yitzchak, and it was when Yitzchak became old, vatechena einav meraot, and his eyes became dark from seeing. right? And then that's when he calls Esav and he asks him to go and to try.
Well, it's
So,
like
okay. So Sue just said he just had a mama's perspective.
Yitzchak likes meat.
Yitzchak likes meat, says Annie. Okay. Yes, he was a hunter. Good. No, Isaac is the planter. Why? Because right, you're saying since Yitzchak was a planter, so because Esav was Ish Sadeh, he was a man of the field as opposed to the man of the tents. So we there's something about his outdoorsiness, which attracted him. Okay. So Sue said it was pure caloric flattery. Okay, fair enough.
Maybe he was just firstborn and that's why I liked him better.
All right. Now, let's get back to hydraulic culture. Remember our first class, hydraulic culture. Just for those who may not have been at the first class. The hydraulic culture is that these great societies of Mesopotamia, Egypt, these river societies where you then expand the GDP by expanding agricultural output. You need a lot of public works. You need to organize society, and you need to have a monopoly on force. And so that's where the soldier class is born. And this is the expansion of power and becomes a very dangerous thing. And these are now Yitzchak is in this scenario. He now is a farmer. Now he doesn't have a river. He's got wells, but he's got crops. And if he's got crops, when you have crops, even farmers sleep at night. And just to give you a biblical example, in the stories of Samson, what does Samson do to the fields of the Philistines? Anybody know that story?
He sends shualim.
Foxes. Ties the foxtails together.
He
And what does
lights up to burn the field.
And he puts a torch on their tails, and so they're running around like crazy, and they're just setting the fields on fire, right? And this is probably, wheat has a green stage and a brown stage. This is probably during the brown stage when is very flammable, right? I don't know how many weeks it is to plow and to sow and to tend your crops, to have them, but it would be very helpful to have a mafioso Esav kind of a guy who's really good at shooting, deer with a bow and arrow, to say, you never know, you could be one day walking to the well and just, find an arrow between your temples, right? Do something to my field, my Esav will take care of you, right? So it's very helpful to have that kind of guy. And if we just project forward a little bit into his future, right? He's not just a good hunter. He assembles an army of 400 men, which I think is probably a pretty big army for those days. So Esav maybe it's not an army, maybe it's just a large organized crime syndicate, right? Right. So that's who Esav is, right? So farms need hunters, and hunters means soldiers. And how do I know that hunters mean soldiers? So it says about Esav that Yitzchak loved him kitzayid befiv, because he had tzayid, trappings, hunting in his mouth. This is what Sue was referring to, that he fed his father well. But the other person who is described in this way in the Tanakh is Nimrod. Nimrod, who is Mr. Hydraulic Society, Mesopotamia, right? He's the guy who's the head of the Tower of Babel. He's the Sinar, right? And this is what the verse says. Hu haya gibor tzayid lifnei Hashem, al ken ya'amer ki Nimrod gibor tzayid lifnei Hashem.
right? He was born right after.
But Isaac doesn't need to know Nimrod. The Torah knows Nimrod, and the Torah knows that you are going to be a careful reader of the text. And when you hear the word Gibor Tzayid about Nimrod, and then you hear the same word, which is not thrown all over the place, about Esav, you're going to be like, this is a baby Nimrod. And we can't, now we're no longer in gender studies. Now we have a professor who's in biblical criticism, right? We got Baruch Spinoza, right, leaving the family of rabbis, right? Esav now represents everything that Avram tried to get away from. So you have this very sort of scary moment where Yitzchak, the farmer, is tempted to use the necessary protection of an Esav to become a proto-Nimrod.
Is Nimrod in Parshat Toldot? I can't find it.
No, he's not in Parshat Toldot. He's in Parshat Bereshit. No, sorry, Parshat Noach. Parshat Noach. Nimrod is in Parshat. This verse is Bereshit 10:9. Parshat Noach. Right, he was a mighty hunter by the grace of Hashem. Hence the saying, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter by the grace of Hashem. So the connection to Nimrod is is outside of Parshat Toldot, but still, we learn who Nimrod is. Now here's where this gets very interesting to me. It's very interesting. Rav Yoel says the following. So actually, before I go into this, let's just review the basics of the story. The basics of the story go like this. Yitzchak says to his sons, he says, "Vayomer hinei nazakanti, I am now old. Lo yadati yom moti, I don't know when I'm going to die. Va'ata sana chelecha v'telyech v'kashtecha v'tzeh hasadeh v'tzuda litzayid." So, see now, I'm aged. I don't know the day of my death. Sharpen, if you please, your gear, your sword, your bow. Go out to the field and hunt some game for me. And they make me delicacies as I love. Bring it to me and I will eat so that my soul may bless you before I die. Okay, so you have a mission, accomplish the mission, you get the blessing. And then presumably this is the blessing of inheritance. Now, Rivka hears this. Now, Rivka had, when she was pregnant, she had this very strange pregnancy that the children were kicking something fierce inside her. She didn't know what was going on, and she goes to seek out God's advice, and she's told, "Shnei goyim b'vitnech, there are two nations in your womb. And two nations from your womb will separate. Right? And the elder will serve the younger." Now she keeps this to herself. Yitzchak does not know this prophecy. But at this moment, when he's about to give this blessing, or he appears to about to give the blessing, I say appears, we'll say why this really needs to be only an appears, but he appears to be giving this blessing to
Wrong guy.
To the wrong guy, correct. And she has to intervene. So she tells Yaakov, "Put on your brother's clothes, I'll put a hairy fur on you, I'll make you the food your father likes to eat, and go in and get the blessing." So Yaakov goes in and gets the blessing, and he says,
he makes a deal with
yes, he had sold the birthright to Esav previously in a different scene. Yes.
Did Rivka know that? Did Rivka know that the Esav sold his birthright?
Okay, so I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. You'll see why I think it doesn't matter. I mean, of course it matters, but I think we might see something that pierces beyond a legalistic interpretation here. And so
Because there is a deal made by Esav and Yaakov.
Yeah, the deal. There's a deal. The deal. Okay, so just to get this on the table, Esav comes in. He says, "Hinei anochi olech lamut. I am going to die. Lama zeli habachora. Why do I need this?
Hi.
And Yaakov sells him the birthright for a pot of lentil soup. Okay. Yes.
Esav.
All right. So Yaakov sells Esav the birthright for a pot of lentil soup. Okay. So this is the scene as Yaakov walks in. Vayavo el aviv, he comes to his father. Vayomer avi, and he says, "My father." Vayomer hineni, he says, "I am here." Mi ata b'ni, who are you, my son? Vayomer Yaakov el aviv, Yaakov says to his father, "Anochi Esav bechorecha, I am Esav, your firstborn. Asiti kasher dibarta elai, I've done what you told me to do. Here's the meat, etc." Now, yeah, Rashi cannot he cannot countenance the fact that Yaakov could be such a brazen liar. So Rashi punctuates this anew, and he says, "Vayomer Yaakov el aviv." Yaakov said to his father, "Anochi, it's me. Esav is your firstborn." As opposed to, "It's me, Esav, your firstborn." It says, "It's me. Esav is your firstborn." Right? That's how Rashi reads this particular verse, because Rashi says that, I guess he puts the burden on Yitzchak for deceiving himself.
Like, it costs $500. Oh, it only costs $500.
Right.
It says, still costs $500.
Yeah.
Go further to verse 24, it says, Yitzhak says, "You are indeed my son Esau," and he said, "I am." So
Okay, good. Well, hold on. Let's pick up a couple other important details. Okay.
It's my Parshat. It's Toldot this weekend.
Okay. All right. I'm going to expect you to have all the answers. Okay. So he says, "All right, I've done what you asked me to do." Vayomer Yitzchak el beno. He says to his son, "What? You found something so quickly?" Vayomer ki yikra shemelecha. Yikra Hashem Elohecha lefanai. God gave me good fortune, put this before me. Vayomer Yitzchak el Yaakov. Yitzchak says to Yaakov, "Geshana v'amushcha b'ni. Let me feel your hand. Come close. I want to feel your hand. Hataz b'ni Esav imlo. Are you really Esav?" Vayigash el Yitzchak, and he approaches Yitzchak. Vayimushehu, and Yitzchak felt his arm. Vayomer, famous words. Hakol kol Yaakov hayadayim yedei Esav. This is the verb. This is the line you tell your daughters if a yeshiva boy gets a little frisky. You say, "Yes, it's the voice of Yaakov, but the hands of Esav." Okay, but in this context, all right, he feels his hands. He says, "Wait a minute, I'm confused." These are the hands of Esav, but the voice of Yaakov. Now, Velohi kiro, he didn't recognize him, kiayo yadav kidei Esav, because his hands were like the hands of Esav, right? And he blessed him. Gives him. Now, this is what Rav Yoel says. It says, "Lo Yaakov levado velo Esav levado nitbarchu mipi Yitzchak be'et shesharta alav ruach hakodesh." Not Yaakov by himself. I'll give you the full translation in a second. Not Yaakov by himself, not Esav by himself would have gotten the blessing, right? Davka shiluv hamuflav habilti ifshari, right? Only this wondrous creation of a combined Yaakov and Esav can get that blessing. Bein kolosha Yaakov yadav shel Esav. You need to have both. You need to be able to fight like Esav and talk like Yaakov. And here the kol Yaakov, the voice of Yaakov, is in the internal, the wisdom, it represents Torah, learning, etc. Right? Gentility. The voice of Yaakov in the hands of Esav. Right? Not Yaakov alone, nor Esav alone. Should I say, received a blessing from Yitzchak when the divine spirit rested upon him. Rather, the seemingly impossible combination of the hands of Esav and the voice of Jacob. That's what you needed. I'm going to go even a little bit further than this. There is I want to say that there's an archetypal read. There is a way of reading these parshiot that transcends a certain kind of strict biological. And the Zohar is maybe the most signature version of this, that the Zohar is going to read cosmological events into these particular individuals. But they're, if you will, they're archetypes. And here, what stands on the precipice? What stands on the precipice here is, will Israel become just another Egypt? Will it become another Mesopotamia? Will it become another farming society that has all of the fighting spirit of those societies with the bow and the sword of Esav? Or will it be something else? It clearly will ultimately have to become an agricultural world. Yitzchak is the first farmer, and we envision the future of the land of Israel as being a farming place. But, to forgive the expression, when you go to a tekes kumta at the kotel, right? The soldiers get two things at that final ceremony. Do you know what those two things they get are?
Tanakh and
A
hat.
tanakh and a gun and a beret, right? So the Tanakh, a beret and a gun, right? So this is the Kol Yaakov and the Yedei Esav. You get them together.
And that's what Israel.
Wow. Wow. Wonderful.
Right? So this is, so we read this chapter and we drive ourselves crazy because Yitzchak says, Ba achicha b'mirma, your brother came with treachery, he took your blessing, right? And Yaakov is going to pay the price for that, right? The Midrash Tanchuma even says it, if you want a canonical source on this, but it's pretty obvious that his father-in-law says, we don't do this in our place. Lo na'aseh kein b'mkomenu. Let's say that's Rab lifnei ha'bechira, to give the younger before the older. That's mishagas from your father's house. We don't do that over here. And he switched around, right? And so Yaakov has two wives because the same kind of deception that he pulled on his father was pulled on him. He pays a price for it, no question about it. And Chazal say that the tear that Esav shed was paid back in the days of Haman, when the Jews cried out. This is not something that came for free. But you can tell Rashi is troubled by it. Rashi is troubled by the fact that we don't want Yaakov Avinu to be a prevaricator. But Rav Yoel, there are others, Rav Soloveitchik has a similar read. It says that's not what really happening here. What's happening here is a Yaakov becoming, taking on the clothes of Esav. He has to remain Yaakov on the inside, but he needs to have the hands of Esav. There has to be some combination between the scholar and the fighter. Right? That's what
Israel is all about.
there you go. This message has now been approved by Meyer Greenstein.
It's not by me, it's the fact, it's stark
If you could see the
Stark-
smile on his face, you would know that we've gotten to the emes lamito shel Torah, the truth of Torah. So anyway, so this is, but this sort of, in a way, this is a culmination of a very important moment. Now I want to show you one other thing, which I just think is really fascinating, right? Because it looks like Yaakov stole the bracha of inheritance, right? The blessing that that his father was meant to give.
What page are we on?
By the way, I want to just point out a couple of things before we go there. 138, right? He makes a blessing. He's Vayomer re'ach b'ni kareach hasadeh, kareach sadeh. The scent of my son is like the scent of the field, which God has blessed, right? So he's again back to the field, right? Vayiten Elohim mitala shamayim mishmei haaretz v'rov dagan v'tirosh. What is he blessed with? He's blessed with abundant, right, and abundant grain and wine. Those are not shepherdy kinds of things. Grain and wine are farmer.
Mhm.
They're in the produce aisle, not in the meat aisle, right? Now he finishes the blessing. Esav comes in, Esav cries, etc. But Yaakov is he needs to run away. He needs to go. But before he runs away, Yitzchak gives him one last bracha. Look on page 142. I'm gonna pull it up on my screen just so. This is chapter 28, verse 4. Okay. Chapter 28, verse 4. So everyone can see this. Vayiten lecha et birkat Avraham. Esav came back and says, Dad, you got no more blessings to give? He says, sorry, I don't really have a blessing to give you, but he makes one up, or he finds one, right? Finds one for Esav. But what do you mean you don't have another blessing? His whole time he had the blessing of Avraham, right? This is the blessing. The other things are, I mean, they're nice, don't get me wrong, but this is the prize, right? This is the final winner, right? To you and your children after you, right? To inherit this land, the land of Israel. Esav will get Har Seir, he'll get the Mount Seir, but Yaakov is getting the blessing of Abraham. He's getting this land, Shenatan Elohim LaAvraham, which God gave to Abraham. Right? That's you. Pardon the expression, but Yitzchak is eyes wide open at this point. Right? He knows the real blessing is only given at the end. What's that? What do you mean? Oh, okay. So you're agreeing with Rav Yoel. You're agreeing that Yaakov before putting on the clothes of Esav, so to speak, wasn't ready for the bracha. I mean, right? Rav Yoel's point is Yaakov, when Yitzchak invites Esav to go out and hunt, Yaakov is not yet ready. Okay, but that's a data point later on, right? That's a data point later on. So Gavi said that's why he gets both wives. Right. 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 Which is why also he remains the wrestler all the time, right? It's hard when you're a soldier and a scholar, it's hard to know who you are when, right? He because you wrestled with God and man and overcame. And he limps. This is not an easy. Yes, but in a way, this is the Yaakov of the world. Yaakov, we know we're going to become an agricultural society. The question is, how do we not become an agricultural society of the Egyptian model, and how do we not become an agricultural society of the Mesopotamian model? How do we not be these lion wrestlers, right? When you say that Nimrod was Gibor Tzayid, so when you go to the British Museum, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to bring this. They have this wonderful video on the British Museum where they project like lights onto the reliefs, and they sort of show you the scene of the whole lion hunt. Right? It's this like testosterone on, gone wild, and that's Mesopotamia. That's the Gibor Tzayid. That is the hero hunter, right? That's not what we want to be, right? And we do not want to be the pharaoh who's all cruelty, all amassing wealth. But we need to be able to protect ourselves. So that's why you need this combination, Esav Yaakov, and that's the picture that
Wonderful.
we're trying to put together. So most of this, just again, once again, credit is due where credit is due. Most of this is the Torah of Rav Yoel bin Nun, but I thought it was just a very interesting in light of the way we've looked at everything up until this point, because we looked at everything up until this point as well. What is this book really about to those people, right? And we saw that it's the farmers kill hunters, and yet one of the avot becomes a farmer. And this is how the family needs to to reconcile itself and transform itself and come to ultimate balance.